4 drivers have fallen by the wayside in the Amateur Cup Series playoffs, and now 8 remain looking to prove their worth for the Championship 4. Their first chance is tonight here at Milwaukee Mile. This is the Wisconsin 300. Hello again, everybody. I'm Colin Denton. Welcome to the 16th round of the Amateur Cup Series in the first race of the round of 8. 4 drivers are now out of contention for the championship, including 2-time winner Chris Harley, who after last race finds himself in a 4-race skid of finishing outside of the top 20. And Donnie Moore barely kept himself alive after Kenny Knox had a blunder on pit lane. And now the 50 car will be heading into this round of 8 with a shot at the title. We look at the standings leaving the last round. Shane Borland definitely had the strongest round, but Conor Mays had the victory in Nashville. He came into these playoffs without a victory, but he will be eligible for this next round. Donnie Moore just barely squeaking in. Both of the Rain Racing drivers, Robert Harrison and Austin Rogers, still in contention. Harrison's the only driver still in these playoffs without a victory on the season after Mays got that playoff opening victory. But who was going to be able to take advantage of this round at Milwaukee with all the points resetting? We've got 40 laps to figure out who will take a step up heading into these final 3 races. Before we get the green flag on the main event, we had the green flag on the truck drivers trying to qualify their way in. If we're comparing it to the open modified races, probably not the same excitement as we saw there, as the cars were able to stay tight to the low line, and that's pretty much what dictated track position, as Tyler Reed started in the 4th position, but got passed up by Steve Ray and Jesse McConnell, and then from there they pretty much strung out single file, with Mike Simpson taking the victory and being able to be one of the 6 moving on, along with Jasper Rouse, Adam Kuhn, Clint McComb, Steve Ray, and Jesse McConnell, with Reed just sitting outside in the 7th position, and Moses Osborne, one of the non-playoff drivers, hoping that he was going to find his way up there into the top 6, unable to do so. Dalton Wise, unfortunately, finds his way all the way in the back. And for tonight's hot seat, we got one of our playoff drivers, Shane Borland, who's put up 4 straight top 13 finishes. That win at Nazareth that put him into the playoffs, at least in a guaranteed spot. 7th at Nashville and 9th at Simtel Park to go along with his top 10s. So we'll have the onboard look with him. And now it is time to go trackside and get the command to start the engines.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give you the command to start the engines, please welcome Dr. Jeff Collier.
Drivers, start your engines!
Fired up when you're ready.
The pressure is on now for the 8 drivers trying to qualify for the Championship 4. Time to get a good head start. Let's take a look now at the starting grid. Starting up front is Alexander Rowe, who's got his 2nd career pole, both at the mile tracks. Got his first one at NASCAR. And Adam Kuhn on his outside, 2 top 15s on the mile tracks in trucks. In row 2, 32nd in points, Joey Radcliffe has a good starting spot alongside Shane Borland, who led the points, leaving the round of 12. Row 3, a couple of drivers that got top 10s in recent races. Here's our Arvin Alonso, finished 7th at Simtel Park. 19-car fan finished 8th at NASCAR. Inside row 4, Jay Jefferson, top 11 in the last 3 races. And Chris Harley, one of our departed Chase drivers, 2-time winner this season. Row 5, Clint McComb, the truck's runner-up at Ontario. He made it to the round of 6. And Jake Thomas still looking for his first top 10 finish. He's starting in 10th. John Gilbert on the inside of row 6 got top 20s all throughout the round of 12 to make it to the next round, and Mike Simpson, the NASCAR winner, and the truck's point leader exiting the round of 8. Our most recent winner, Jacob Rose, starts on the inside of row 7, got the victory at Simtel Park, and Griffin Lynn, 5 top 20s in the last 6 races. Row 8, a couple drivers that finished top 20 in our last mile race at NASCAR, Ryan Kendall in 12th and Colin Lindsay in 18th. Inside row 9, the only Chase driver that won in the round of 12, Conor Mays, got the victory at Nashville, and Jesse McConnell, a winner in the trucks at another mile track, Toronto Lakeshore. In row 10, another eliminated driver, Kenny Knox, a 9th at NASCAR, was his best finish last round, and to his outside, Wisconsin native Craig Martin. Row 11 on the inside is Noah Kim, had a good finish at NASCAR, finished 3rd, and Eric Van Arsdale, another eliminated driver, has 4 straight finishes outside the top 20 after a pair of top 5s. Steve Ray got his first amateur top 5 at NASCAR, finishing 4th. Joining him in row 12 will be Robert Harrison, who finished 10th at NASCAR and is looking to advance in the playoffs. Row 13, the 3rd place man at Simtel Park, Kyle Bichelia, inside of Kyle Law, who left the round of 12 3rd in points. In row 14, Ray Chapman picked up his first top 5 at Simtel Park. He finished 4th, and TJ Ball was the NASCAR runner-up. Chase driver Dwayne Calloway on the inside of row 15 finished 5th at NASCAR. to his outside Anthony Lopez, 2 top 10s and 3 short track starts. He finished 38th at NASCAR. In row 16, we've got AJ Jones, 1 top 20 in his last 8 races, and alongside is Jason Thales looking for his first top 20 at a track 1 mile or shorter. TJ Smith will line up behind his teammate in row 17 and alongside Al Calloway, who has 6 top 20s in the last 7 races. Jasper Rawls starts his 3rd Amateur Cup Series race from the inside of row 18 alongside Sparky the Sun Devil, who's out of the playoffs after 3 finishes outside the top 30. In row 19, Chase Baldwin, 3 top 20s in the last 4 races alongside Austin Rogers, who was the runner-up at Simtel Park. In row 20, a couple of drivers looking to break some streaks outside the top 10. Jack Freeman hasn't seen one since race 8, and Andy Coleman hasn't seen a top 10 since race 11. And in the final row, Justin Roadback, who's furthest back in full-time standings, and Donnie Moore, who just squeaked his way into the round of 8, now going to be starting on his back foot. Just a quick reminder, if you want to watch this race from onboard any of our 8 remaining playoff drivers, over on the NFRN channel, you can see those streams. They are now active. You'll get those driver stats and the chase board throughout the entire race. Pace car pulls off, they head down the front stretch, and the green flag's out! We're racing in Milwaukee. Great jump by Alexander Rowe, getting out there early. Shane Borland finds himself on the outside of Alonso, trying to see if he can find his way to the inside line, which was preferred in the part-timer race, as we saw. Conor Mays making a 3-wide move underneath Griffin Lynn and Mike Simpson, and he's going to get turned into the outside wall! Lynn goes around, but there's damage for the 84 car. And trouble already for one of the strongest drivers in the chase field. He's still running, but he definitely has some front-end damage. Hit the outside wall with a good lick. And we're going to have to see a replay of that one. Not entirely sure what happened there. That is going to be our first caution on lap number 2. They come to the yellow flag, and Alexander Rowe in the lead. You see this 3-wide pass. Mays getting underneath Lynn, and I'm not sure if he just thinks that he's clear and doesn't leave Lynn any room, but there's definitely contact as they're exiting turn 2, and effectively just hooks Conor Mays into the wall. Griffin Lynn goes with, and Mike Simpson, so really all 3 of those drivers that were just in the 3-wide situation. Noah Kim nowhere to go, right on the inside of that. Lynn goes for a full 360. Looks like Noah Kim's also going to go at least partially around. And he'll get it righted. Let's take a look from a front-on angle. Oh, I am not sure. It almost looks like Lynn comes off the corner and kind of corrects it to the left. I'm not sure if he was intentionally trying to hook Mays there, but it didn't look like Mays tightened up coming off the corner. It looked like Lynn just briefly oversteered, perhaps? I'm not sure. Well, league officials will have to review that one and determine if there was anything possibly intentional there. Obviously, they've got the same access to the footage that we do, but they'll be the ones that decide that. On board with Conor Mays. And a look from Robert Harrison. We're under caution here at Milwaukee Mile. 3 laps in the books.
This season, nothing scares Carl Edwards more than losing. Not a 10-car pileup on a fast track. Not trading paint with a car full of clowns. Not that furnace in his basement that sometimes looks like a face. Losing is even scarier than having to choose between starving and eating your best friend Bob.
I don't feel like I've got much time left. Great.
There are only two things that scare Carl Edwards: losing and not winning.
Back here at the Milwaukee Mile after an accident involving chase driver Conor Mays. No one has dropped out of the event, and it has kind of been the precedent that the NFRN hasn't penalized drivers within the race. If anything will be handed down to Griffin Lind, it will come post-race, but again, we'll have to see what they decide on how that accident played out. But either way, we're back under green flag, and Alexander Rowe leading the way. And as you can see, Conor Mays, he did not pit, which was very interesting, but he is certainly not up to power, and you can see there's a little bit of a hang-up behind him, and Craig Martin getting turned into the wall by Eric Van Arsdale. And we do not have a caution. We are staying green as the car slides on the inside of the track. What a shame for the driver who's from this state. He finished top 10 at Simtel Park on the west side of the state. Qualified for the Elite Cup Series race and finished 5th. Was really hoping to continue that streak of good finishes. Unfortunately, he'll now be at the back as Eric Van Arsdale continues on. And it all kind of seemed like it stacked up from the 84 car, who has some issues getting up to speed. But as we mentioned during the starting grid, hasn't had any top 20 finishes since he finished 2nd at Peoria, and hasn't gotten a victory this season, and obviously out of the playoffs now. Now we've got Robert Harrison struggling to get around Conor Mays, and he was above the cut line, but now being stuck behind the 84 has put him below it, and obviously as he makes his way by the 84, he'll gain that spot on him as Mays continues to backtrack. He had the 21st place finish at NASCAR, the other mile track we've had on the schedule this season, but obviously that 84 is not running at full tilt after that contact with the wall. Very surprised to not see him come down and get repairs. Now he's got an inside move from Eric Van Arsdale, 3 wide with Anthony Lopez, and they go into the outside wall right in front of Mays. And I think he's going to get it through it, but not everyone is, and now we're going to have a caution. Don't believe any chase drivers were involved there, and it looks like Mays was able to slip just through it. But Anthony Lopez was trying to make a move to the inside. Eric Van Arsdale also there at the same time. And for the second time in just a short amount of laps, Eric Van Arsdale involved in an incident. We should mention Craig Martin came down to the pits shortly after, and that's some bad timing for him because now he is trapped a lap down. So it just went from bad to worse for him. Had he just waited a couple more laps, he might have had a chance to stay on the lead lap. But it looks like this is where everyone's going to pit, and it seems like the consensus around the garage is that everyone only needs one stop. And this just might be within their window to make it to the end. Certainly with gas mileage, we'll see what everyone does in terms of tires. We're tracking 3 chase drivers. Dwayne Calloway, the first of those to make it into his box, and he is going to take at least a 2-tire stop. Shane Borland, John Gilbert. You can also see them there. Calloway goes off the jack, and he's taking 2 tires only. And we'll see if everyone else is going that direction, and it looks like all of the leaders are doing that. And Alexander Rowe is going to be the first one off the pits. So it looks like 2 tires for most everybody as we take a look at the race off pit lane. And Alexander Rowe is going to hang on to the lead, but Adam Kuhn's able to jump ahead of Joey Radcliffe. Alonso stays put, and there's quite a few guys that jumped up, especially Dwayne Calloway jumped 8 spots on that stop. Let's go back to this restart. I just want to take a look at Conor Mays, and it looks like he restarts okay, but then as he gets a little bit more speed, it starts piling up behind him, and Craig Martin makes a very ambitious move underneath Jesse McConnell. And there you can see Van Arsdale pushing up into the 82, and again, it's one of those situations where it just seems like there's so much time to get separated, and yet the car on the left ends up hooking the car on the right into the inside wall. And you just have to wonder if there was any way that that could have been avoided. Unfortunately for the 82 car, Martin is now 1 lap down after taking a pit stop a little bit later. He did not come in immediately after this accident. Now we take a look at what brought out our caution, as Lopez and Van Arsdale both go underneath the 84 car. And again, it's the 67 on the inside and just pushes up into the 75. This time, though, 75's behind him and sends them both into the outside wall. Jasper Rouse takes a good shot and looks like he's going to run into the inside wall. See if we can get another look at that. Another contact there with Lopez is now Van Arsdale right in the middle of the track, and he's going to get run into by Jack Freeman and Noah Kim. A little bit of collateral there. I believe everyone else is going to make it through. A much needed dodge by the 50 of Donnie Moore. Can't afford to lose any more points after being in the back of the field. So we take another look at this. Should have a look at Jasper Rawls. What happened to him as he is pointed straight at that inside wall. And he's going to hit it pretty flush, which is no more ideal than hitting it head on. Both are a pretty crummy way to make contact, and we'll see if he's able to continue, but looks like he drove away. Oh, and I see Conor Mays up into the wall up there in the top left of the screen, so he did have some contact. Let's take the onboard. Let's see what happened here. And the 54, as he was rebounding off the wall, couldn't slow down, and unfortunately the 84 car was there, and it just keeps getting worse for Conor Mays. We'll watch this one through Donnie Moore's view as we hit a commercial break. Second caution, with only 11 laps complete. We'll be right back.
What amazing driving we've seen here today. Looks like the McDonald's car is taking the lead, but can he hold on to it? It's the fries mill maneuver. Works every time. And McDonald's wins by a nose. Now McDonald's has Hot Wheels cars with cool stickers that make them look like the ones real NASCAR drivers race.
I'm catching you.
Bill, Kyle, it's time for the race.
Do we have to?
One toy in each Barbie Hot Wheels Happy Meal you buy at McDonald's.
Did somebody say McDonald's?
Back here for the NFRN Amateur Cup Series chase round of 8 at the Milwaukee Mile. Alexander Rowe leading the way from the pole. Won the race off pit lane, and we'll see if anyone else needs to come back down for a second stop. But as we've heard, it should be the only stop we see this race. Alexander Rowe is certainly hoping that it's going to be the only stop, as he's doing very well up front. However, we did mention Craig Martin fell a lap down after pitting under the green flag, and now he's hogging up that inside line at effectively the same speed as the leaders. So now Rowe's going to have to hope that he can clear the 82, or at least find a way to get to the inside line before someone behind makes their way through, like Adam Kuhn, who doesn't seem to be super quick to get down to the inside line. He might get passed up by Radcliffe at this point, but Martin is certainly holding his own, and he has every right to try and get back on the lead lap and hope that there's going to be another caution very quickly while the 33 is behind him. At the moment, he just about has Rowe cleared, and if Rowe can just get behind the 82, he'll have the space to get into the inside line and keep everyone at bay for now. He hasn't taken that option, though. He continues to run on the outside as we see Conor Mays, after 2 contacts in this race, is now falling away from the pack. And you can see on the chase board, 27 points behind, and it's quite a wide gap between even 4th and 5th. Kyle Lall, 13 points between him and Donnie Moore, who just snuck into the round of 8 after some pit issues with Kenny Knox at Simtel Park. But Mays is certainly going to have a hard time getting the maximum speed down these straightaways. Let's take a look around our chase drivers as Shane Borland and John Gilbert running side by side. Gilbert certainly fared well in the playoffs, had finishes of 8th, 17th, and 6th in the round of 12. He's about to make his way around Shane Borland, about to clear him. Being trailed by Jay Jefferson, and now we ride on board Shane Borland, our hot seat driver. He's trying to see if he can get down to that inside line. Jefferson's going to claim that spot. And it looks like Clint McComb is in the mirror of the 60 car. Borland might have an opening now to try to get down to the inside. And he does. He's going to take that spot, so 60 car will stop the bleeding for now. To look behind Borland, and there is the 65 of Dwayne Calloway. Certainly did what he needed to do. He had a top 5 at NASCAR, which was sandwiched in between 2 drives that were outside the top 20, so all it really takes to advance is just hope that the drivers around you don't put up any good finishes, and just one will get you to the next round, and that's exactly what Calloway rode into this round of 8. I was hoping to have at least a nice day here in Milwaukee. Currently 14 points up. I'm sure he wouldn't complain about that. As we look back on Kyle Law, who really turned his season around once he got winning. Those first 7 races, he was averaging a 23rd place finish, and in these last 8 races, which include those back-to-back victories, he's improved several spots, and he definitely needed that, and he's rode that momentum into this next round of the playoffs, and so he's hoping that he can stay in front of Donnie Moore and the rest of the group, as Moore qualified in the last position, never really got going in qualifying, and really he's been able to find something to keep himself in this race, and not just the attrition, because he's been able to get around some pretty solid cars. You see him trailing the 6 of TJ Smith. Just trying to make a move on, it looks like the 97. Clearly not in the position Moore wants to be, but he has the positions available to him to make up. Trying to see if he can attack it one by one, as we have already passed the halfway point of the race. And run about 8 of those laps under caution. See, it's quite a traffic jam up in front. It's almost single file. There's quite a bit of 2 wide racing. Not the 3 and 4 wide like we were seeing in the modified race, fortunately. Unless, of course, you were looking for the wreck-heavy races, in which case that was probably your cup of tea. Simtel Park runner-up, Austin Rogers. Hadn't been running well the previous few races, and was able to grab that finish that probably propelled him into these final 4 events, so long as he can qualify for the Championship 4. And this is one of 2 teams that have 2 entries in the round of 8, alongside Western Motorsports, Rain Racing. Although Western has 4 cars entered in here, and Rain Racing only has these 2, and they are both still active. Harrison's still looking for that victory, and I'd say it's improbable at this point, given where he is right now, but still got a couple races to go, and if he can just make up some positions here to try to minimize that gap that he'd be dragging into Red River, it would be much needed for him. Unfortunately for Connor Mays, he's kind of at the mercy of anyone who might crash in these last 15 laps, because it seems like it's improbable that he's going to catch anybody. Running in the 41st position with only Craig Martin, who's nearly about to go a lap down. Behind him, right now the 82 car is holding off Alexander Rowe. But for how long, as there's a queue right behind him with Radcliffe, Alonso, and here comes Rowe making the move to the inside now. He is not waiting. Trying his best to get around him. Not quite clear yet. Should have the ability to clear him going into turn 1. And will anybody be able to follow him? That's the big question. Rowe's now clear of the 82, but no one has followed him. And this could be a big break for Rowe, who's been doing very well lately. 3 top 10s in the last 4 races. Tripling his amount in the first 11 events, and looking for that first career victory. He might be able to get it here if it goes green, with Alonso and Radcliffe running side by side behind him. Alonso definitely not giving Radcliffe any favors there. Certainly looking for that first win as well. Got the runner-up at Knox. So could be on his way to matching his best finish, but and as they continue to fight, they're really letting Rowe get away from them with Martin still an obstacle. Looks like Alonso will be able to clear going down into turn 1, but it took a long time for him to clear that 53 and still hasn't quite done it. It looks like he's got it this time, and he'll hold the defensive line here, and Rowe will continue to lead here at Milwaukee. One more break, and we'll be back for the finish. Back here at the Milwaukee Mile for the first race of the NFRN Amateur Cup Series round of 8. Currently a non-chaser leading the way, and Alexander Rowe, who's led from the start of the green flag, took the pole, his second career pole, both coming at the mile tracks, and he's got a pretty good gap over Alonso in second place. Craig Martin, kind of a roadblock in the middle right now, but still holding pace for a lapped car. And meanwhile, Joey Radcliffe is just behind Alonso, trying to see if he can sneak around him for second, and looking for a career best finish. That's currently fourth, and he's running third. That fourth place came at bump drafting. It's a super speedway, so definitely going to be a little bit more credibility if he can get the top 5 here at a shorter, non-drafting track. And he is followed by the most recent winner of this series, Jacob Rose, who got the victory at Simtel Park, and quite the back-to-back races for Rose, who was unable to make his way into the chase. He's putting up some good performances, and he's trying to see if he can track down those top 3. At least get into second or third, as it looks like Alonso tried to make a move on Martin as he's trying to make his way around him now. And an unfortunate circumstance for Kenny Knox. We mentioned it before, a poor pit stop kind of cost him that spot in the round of 8. He was ahead of Donnie Moore, and unfortunately, the pit stop was just too slow for him. And that was able to propel Donnie Moore into the top 8, and got to give props to Moore. He's only 5 behind Kyle Law at the moment on the chase grid, and we look at Adam Kuhn, who's being challenged by Dwayne Calloway for a spot and potentially another point for the chase driver. Kuhn started on the outside of row 1, and he has drifted back to 8th, but got to give him props for holding it up there in the top 10. Part-time truck driver still competing in the playoffs. Back on the onboard of Shane Borland, who's trying to chase down Dwayne Calloway, and he was able to get around John Gilbert, who's now kind of stuck on the outside line. Looks like Clint McComb is going for that spot now, so Borland not only took a point away from Gilbert, but he also put another chunk of points away from him by getting McComb underneath, and looks like TJ Ball's not going to try to challenge for a spot, so Gilbert's losing some points late in this race. That is not what he needed. He's now only single digits ahead of Donnie Moore at the moment. As we ride on board the driver of the 50. 5 laps to go, but still some positions that driver of the 50 could collect. He gets in the right spots. It looks like Al Calloway is stuck on the outside line, and we see Gilbert is trapped on the outside of TJ Ball, with Jason Dales just behind him. And another chaser, and Kyle Law, is tracking him down as well. Well, he might have a gap here if he can slip into it. We're riding on board Gilbert right now, and he's not going to take that inside line, so Jason Dales might be able to get underneath them. Colin Lindsay also stuck on the outside line. Ooh, Gilbert got a pretty good run off of turn 2. Can he get down to the inside? And he does. Good run off that corner. And that's going to stop the bleeding for the 31 car. You have to give props to the 50 of Donnie Moore, though. He had really picked it up. It looks like he's about to be on track for another top 20. He's had quite a few of those in the past few races. 3 in the last 4, but none of them being top 10s. And it doesn't look like he's going to get that far up, but he is making up ground, even in these late laps. And that's really going to help his positioning going into Red River up in North Dakota, as the Rain Racing drivers are really struggling back there, along with the obvious Conor Mays, who's been involved in 2 incidents today. We've only had those 2 cautions. We haven't had a caution for the last 25 laps or so. It's Craig Martin. Unfortunately, he's not going to get his lap back. Jake Thomas, who's in 7th place, just went underneath them. But coming through turn 3 and 4, Alexander Rowe's going to see the white flag. This race will end under the next flag. And someone is down on pit lane. I believe that is Griffin Lynn. It looks like he might not have had enough fuel to get to the end, so they ran pretty close to that fuel window. We mentioned it didn't seem like they were going to need to make another pit stop, but they were really tight on that window. But Alexander Rowe played it perfectly, got a little help from the lapped car, and he's going to go rail to rail and collect his first career victory. Alexander Rowe comes across the line and takes the checkered flag here in Milwaukee. Smooth sailing for the driver of number 33. He is tonight's winner of the Wisconsin 300, and although he's not competing for a title, he's going to have a little bit of something to brag about when he heads back to the race shop. Taking a look at the final results in this one, Rowe taking the victory, followed by Alonso and Radcliffe. Rose and Knox will round out the top 5. Good run for Knox after that performance at Simtel knocked him out of the playoffs. Also have to give props to Alonso for getting back-to-back top 10s after the 7th place at Simtel. And of course, Jacob Rose following up the victory there with a 4th place run tonight. And for the first time this season, Jake Thomas has a top 10. He was the only Amateur Cup Series full-timer that didn't have a top 10, and he's got it here tonight. Dwayne Calloway going to be the highest placing chase driver, finishing in the 9th position. Shane Borland will take the 11th position, while John Gilbert will get 13th. Fortunately, he was able to stop himself from sliding back too far. Kyle Law will end up in 16th, and Donnie Moore in 19th, so those 3 positions between Law and Moore will end up being the cut line. And looking further back, none of the remaining chase drivers were able to finish inside the top 30, as all of these taken up by non-playoff drivers, including some of those that were dropped out after the round of 12. Chris Harley finishing 22nd, Sparky finishing 29th, so clearly their season's not getting any better after elimination. We'll have to go all the way back to 33rd to find Austin Rogers and Robert Harrison finishing next to each other. Eric Van Arsdale had a couple of incidents in that second green flag stint, and he ends up in the 38th position. Obviously had his accident and running with a little bit of damage, but ultimately no one dropped out of the race, including Conor Mays, who still ends up in the 40th position, unfortunately for him. So we'll be the furthest back, and we'll have the most to make up in the final 2 races of the round. And did make a brief mention of it, Griffin Lynn stopped just before the white flag lap, and that put him a lap down and behind Craig Martin, who tried to get back on the lead lap, but unfortunately never had the caution to save him. So here is how the playoff standings look, and realistically, no one is in a extremely safe position, at least to get in, because it's only 10 points away from the cut line at the top, because we had 5 drivers finish inside the top 20. Of course, Austin Rogers, Robert Harrison, and Conor Mays definitely have some more work cut out for them in these next 2 races. Certainly not out of the realm of possibility, but it definitely looks like it might come down to these 5 fighting for the 4 positions that will send you to the championship 4, unless you can get a win in one of these next 2 races. And of course, we'll look at those drivers that did fall out of the round of 12, and because Kenny Knox had that great run in today's race, along with being the first driver out, he has a pretty good gap over the rest of the eliminated drivers. And here's a look at the standings outside of the playoffs, and Craig Martin had a pretty good gap entering this race. Unfortunately for him, the 41st place is going to really hurt him, especially with Jacob Rose finishing up there inside the top 5. Now it's only a 3-point gap. Alonso also finishing runner-up. He's only 10 behind for that top spot outside the playoffs, and Alexander Rowe with the victory tonight. bumps him up to 21st. He entered this race in the 28th position in points, so he jumped up 7 spots. In the team standings, RPG7 Motorsports is able to jump ahead of Rain Racing after Jacob Rose's solid performance, and Coca Racing struggled a bit with Conor Mays finishing 40th, so keeping a close grip in that battle. And here are the cars that will be driven by these drivers in the Elite Cup Series part-time qualifying. A bit of position shuffling for the order, but it is the same lineup as the past few races, with Craig Martin and Jacob Rose still taking up those final 2 spots. So that's going to do it for the NFRN Amateur Cup Series here at Milwaukee, but we still got another race to go tonight. The Elite Cup Series is going to set their round of 8, and that is about to start next. Alexander Rowe goes flag to claim his first career victory. For NFRN and RVN, my name is Colin Denton, and we will see you all next time.